I'm joined today by Pauline Drossart, half of musical group Aykanna. Today, Pauline and I are continuing our four-part conversation about suicide prevention and awareness for this month. Pauline has a very intimate relationship with this subject, having lost a few of her family members to suicide. So we are going to be very vulnerable about this conversation and the directionality of it, continuing to create openness about these type of topics so that they don't become so taboo. And the more that we can openly talk about these things, the more help we can find. So I really hope you enjoy the conversation. We'll see you on the other side. But first, a message from our sponsor. Anamkara is a gorgeous meditation and healing center, offering daily in-person and virtual services to help bring you back to the center of who you truly are. They serve through a collective of practitioners, healers, and teachers, offering daily meditation classes, one-on-one healing sessions, workshops, personal ceremonies, and private events, plus corporate and team training, all with mindfulness at the core. The center itself is located in the heart of downtown Spokane. Every part of it was built, designed, and curated for you to drop into your calm place. They have a large community space for daily meditation classes and workshops, as well as 2 one-on-one healing rooms, a community kitchen to gather for tea, plus a well-stocked apothecary for you to gather all of your self-care and ritual needs. Hannah Talbot, the owner and founder of Anamkara, dreamed of opening this space for years. It is her ultimate manifestation, and she cannot wait to share it with those in the Spokane community, but also through the virtual ethers, wherever you may be. Pop in for a class today. You can follow them on Instagram to book and stay up to date. Check out the website, the full schedule, meet the practitioners, and view all the offerings. Visit them at anamkarahealing.center. Anamkara, may you be nourished and ignited. Our healing journey can be difficult and might feel lonely at times. That's why I love sound baths. When we can get together in a community, we intrinsically support and feel supported by others. And that combined energy can help us go deeper into our own healing journeys. And all you have to do is just lay there for 1 hour and listen to beautiful healing sounds. I'm a sound healing practitioner, and I hold sound baths on a regular basis in the greater Seattle area. You can find my next sound baths on my website at adamrealhealing.com. That's Adam, A-D-A-M, Real, R-I-E-H-L, Healing, Healing.com. AdamRealHealing.com. Your healing is worth your time. And now an uninterrupted podcast with Pauline Drossart. All right, welcome back to our show. Today I'm joined by an amazing musician, Miss Pauline Drossart. Pauline is half of a musical group called Aykanna. Pauline has a deep musical background. She's a Billboard acclaimed artist, and with her husband, who is a Grammy-nominated percussionist, they have Aykanna. And I was just turned on to your music by Heather Henninger, who's a repeat guest on our show. And once she turned me onto it, it was like, why don't I know this music? It's so beautiful. It's so perfect for everything that I do, from sound healing to meditation to yoga. I mean, it fits so perfectly with all of the backing that I would need for my work. And so I'm so excited to, one, be introduced to your music, but also, two, to be introduced to you personally and be able to chat with you. So thank you so much, Pauline, for taking time out of your day to chat with us today.
Thank you, Adam. Honored to be here.
So we're in our 4th part of our Suicide Prevention Month episodes, and we're speaking pretty openly about what goes on in the mind, right, with suicide prevention, with our suicidal thoughts, with sometimes suicidal attempts. And one of the goals for these 4 episodes is to kind of normalize the discussions around this so that we don't feel so lost and internalized with these struggles that, as I start to talk to more people about these things and express my vulnerability with it, I'm finding that more people are actually having these kind of ideations, romanticisms, if you will, about, leaving this earth in some kind of way. And a lot of people feel really guilty about that. So I think the more that we can be honest and we can be vulnerable about these type of conversations, we can openly talk about them and disperse a lot of these preconceived notions about what these things mean, and understand that maybe there's a deeper meaning than things that we can figure out as we start to open up about them. So Pauline,
Yeah,
you've had a experience with this subject before, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, it's very close in my field, as I'm dealing with a whole lineage that has chosen that route.
Mm.
So my grandmother when I was 6, my mother when I was 7, and my brother just 4 years ago.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So, it's something that I've been in the field of, and I think that for many, many years, the beginning of my life, sort of coming through that was I was finding solace in drugs and alcohol for a long time, and partying and being kind of like, feeling like a star in my own circle of people. That was my way of dealing with it as a young person growing up in London and getting involved in the music business and all of that. And then as when I turned 33, I discovered I had really hit a big rock bottom in an abusive relationship. And I found myself in 12-step recovery, which was such a blessing. Because by that time I was off class A drugs and I was just still dealing with marijuana addiction. I've been smoking for 20 years. And like the thought of like not smoking anymore just wasn't, as an artist, as a singer-songwriter and all of that, just wasn't in my field of consciousness. And I ended up in program when I was 33 and simultaneously was introduced to Kundalini yoga. And so my recovery path began very quickly and very strong. Like it was like from one extreme, an addict, an abusive relationship, like out of that, becoming a Kundalini yoga teacher, working the 12th step. I'd been, in another teaching called the Landmark Forum and did a bunch of programs for 4 years within that. And I was working with my now husband, who was then, percussionist in my band and also very steeped in herbalism and shamanism, and had been on his own healing path for already 20 years. And so he kind of like scooped me up and I went down that path with him. So for me, it was very quick and extreme. It was like, okay, come out of that. And I really feel like that's the grace, that's the grace of my ancestors. And that's the grace of when you trust what's in front of you and you stay open and you say yes. I feel like that's a lot of what the magic and miracles that I've experienced in my life.
That's one of the things that really hit me with my personal healing journey once I started on that was I had a mentor tell me that I'm not only healing myself, but I'm healing 7 generations behind me, and I'm setting up 7 generations ahead of me. And so like having that mentality and having that understanding now is very comforting, but not knowing anything about that prior, I also, I felt so disjointed in my path and in my journey. And, I wonder how for yourself losing, close family members at the age of 6 and 7, when we're still trying to identify ways to process emotions and understand the world. Did you have support at that point in time from other family members, or was that something that, something you had to figure out on your own?
Yeah, unfortunately, and it's really the deep process and some grief that I'm working through right now in my therapeutic container is that I didn't have support. I was sent to boarding school around 7 and I came out when I was 18.
Wow.
So it was just that abandonment programming of, my father was a businessman and was super busy. My stepmother was so young. She was 25. She already had 2 kids of her own. And here comes another 2 kids, which are not her own. And so, it was like the only solution then was boarding school. And there was, from what I remember, I mean, how do you explain to a 7-year-old something like that
Right.
happened? I haven't, my daughter's 10 years old and she knows nothing about anything yet. And I just don't feel ready to share with her. She doesn't even know about my brother. She knows he died, but she doesn't know how. She's never asked.
Right.
And so, I feel like I definitely did not have the right support or the right container coming out of that.
Yeah.
And yet I'm close with my family and I love them. And I've done enough work within myself, I think, not enough work. The work is never ending, but right, I've processed enough and I have enough of a compassionate heart that I can see, how much of a struggle it was for them.
Right. And that's I
And
think
that,
that's a beautiful position to be in too, because we're all doing just the best that we can with the information we have, with the tools that we have in our toolbox. Looking back at my life before, I mean, even now, I can't say that I'm perfect, even though I'm doing work. We're still messing up and still creating traumas we have to unpack later on. But when my kids were very, very young, my dad passed away, and I wasn't in a place to where I could deal with that in a healthy way, and so I just drank a lot, and then became more
mm,
separate from my kids, and wasn't present for them, and I was doing the best that I could, just like I know that my parents were doing the best that they could with all the things that they've instilled in me that I have to work on. So I love that to hear that you have that empathy for your family, because these moments we look to our elders for comfort, but who do they look for comfort? They need comfort too, and if they're trying to comfort those that they're supporting with no comfort on their own, then that's where a lot of this tumultuousness starts to come in, and these traumas start to get really deep in our bodies because we haven't had the opportunity to process them.
very true, and I think for those of us who are parents, and walking a path of consciousness, and when I mean a path of consciousness, it's just your work in progress,
Mm.
but you have a daily practice. Hopefully you're sober, because I believe from being sober for nearly 20 years now that sobriety is a big part of becoming conscious. I
Mm.
really do. And I'm a stand for that. I'm a stand for women in sobriety and all people in sobriety, but I believe that when you are walking in consciousness, that you get to that place. You get to the place of absolute radical compassion for your parents, and a reconnection of love
Mm.
with everybody around you, with your tribe. Because I mean, when you don't have that, and you're on the path of consciousness, I think it's almost even more suffering can be present, right?
I
Than not, right?
Most definitely. I think it's the idea that we can do something that we don't know is negative for our body for a long time, and it doesn't really have that full negative effect because we're not conscious of it. But once we're conscious of the negativity that we're performing on ourselves, for ourselves, and with ourselves, that
Yeah,
lands in a very stronger way because it's bad for you. Right? It's like
that's
I smoked for a long time, but once I found out and once I felt and saw the physical effects of smoking, when I continued smoking, it got worse. So I had to quit smoking cigarettes, or I was going to just continue on the path of my mom and dad. And so that, yeah, once we're consciously aware of the negativity, it lands in a very stronger way, in my opinion.
Yeah, well said, Adam. Absolutely. And then especially when you're teaching, be tough, because you're constantly looking at yourself, processing your own life and your past, and you're choosing something it's not an easy route. So don't get all starry-eyed by what you see on Instagram, or out there in the world, by what it is to be a yoga teacher or teaching about consciousness, because it's you have to show up for yourself in a way that you wouldn't if you weren't teaching,
Right.
right?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, yeah. I think that's missed on a lot of people in their early part of their path, is how exhausting the path
Yeah.
is. Our brain loves patterns. It loves to, look at patterns, understand patterns, because it saves energy that way. So when we're conscious and we're constantly aware of every single thing around us, our brain is working overtime and it's expending so much more
Mm,
energy. So there's the mental exhaustion, there's the physical exhaustion, and then there's the emotional side of it, because you're, dredging up all these things that we push
mm,
down for whatever reason. And now here comes that trauma, and here comes the understanding of where that trauma came from. And you're having to face that again. And that's not for the faint of heart. Like, it's one of the most exhausting and treacherous things that I've ever done, but also the little bits of success and little bits of that chess piece moving forward is all worth it every single time. Just that millimeter forward is all that I need. and it makes me keep coming back and understanding that, this work is important. If I can do this work for me, then maybe that sets up my kids to do the work that they need to do, and just that domino effect that we keep improving the world in that little bits of ways at a time.
That's beautiful. One thing, and this can also speak to suicide prevention. And I think in this world of new age and consciousness and yoga and heal this and heal that, one thing that I've really been sitting with over these last couple of years and taken into meditation is how to live in the paradox of life. And how to hold both. Like I can hold the grief of my lineage and the constant sort of mental processing, not constant, but a lot of mental processing of asking myself, like, am I all right? What's going on? Am I okay? Am I going too far over here, too far over there? Because when you come from, lineage, like a whole tribe like that, it's, I question myself a lot. And so to be able to hold that and to be able to hold at the same time how amazing my life is. I'm in the most, incredible conscious relationship. My husband and I are deepening and really doing the work together. I've got a beautiful child. I've got an amazing life in Costa Rica. I've got an amazing community. I'm an artist. I get to express myself. I have courage to bring my gifts forward, like holding both, right? And like just being in that dance and being with the paradox of life and not trying to get too high over here with like, how amazing is my life, right? And my art, and not getting too low and dragged down by, oh my God, am I gonna, am I doing myself a number with this mental loop that I'm in? Or this grief, just like being able to dance in between both and holding the paradox. And when you look at, Carl Jung and the deep therapeutic models, and even the Tao Te Ching, which I love, it's all about being able to hold both.
Yeah.
It's all about being able to live in the paradox of life and sort of, and from the up above, seeing from the cosmos, right, the cosmic view of the soul, seeing the lila, seeing the play of life, and how it's all like stupid on one level it is, and then very serious on another level, right? So that's been my work over this last couple of years, is like, okay, I can hold both just because I'm feeling my body doesn't feel well, or mentally I'm not feeling up to par today. I can still take some time out. I can get in the water. I can talk to myself, and I can shift, and I can show up for a class, and I can show up like a good enough mother for my daughter, and I can show up like a good enough wife. And that's been really my thing with the paradox, is there is truth. And I think that those of us who deal with, mental health issues, or feeling like we're super high and then we're super low, and like, do I even want to be on this planet? One thing that I've learned, a tool, is that when you're super high and you're like chasing this ideal, you are in the all-powerful nature. You're like burning yourself out because you want to do better, you want to be better, you want to be more advanced spiritually, right? That's the all-powerful nature. And yet the paradox of life asks us to be in this is good enough, bit by bit. I don't need to be in this idealism, which is all illusion anyway. I can just do good enough. So my whole thing, good enough wife, I'm a good enough teacher, song, it's good enough. It doesn't need to be any better, because that cuts me off from my creativity, and it cuts me off from my joy of life. And it's actually a therapeutic, I think a Jungian principle is the all-powerful nature. And you really see it on social media and the way everybody's creating their own beautiful world, right? That's a lot of the all-powerful nature. And yet, like, a stable life asks us to hold both, asks us to hold the paradox. And that's been helping me. I think it's the biggest thing over the last couple of years that's really been carrying me.
Yeah, and it is that balance that we need to find. It's the balance between the physical and the metaphysical world. When I first
Mm.
got sober and quit drinking and quit hard drugs, I dove headfirst into meditation, and that saved my life in a very big way. But eventually, meditation became my new addiction, and I started just meditating all the time. And right, and it's like, well, shit, now I can't. And then in the internal dialogue in my head is like, well, shit, I can't do anything right? I used to spend all this time drinking and doing drugs. Now I'm spending time meditating and getting into my head, but now I'm doing that too much, and I'm abandoning my children and my fiance and all these things. So it's like where do we draw the line? But I think that's part of that consciousness is like dealing with for me, it was dealing with the addictive behavior, right? And
Mm.
so finding that, if I'm spending all my time meditating, am I actually being present as a householder for my family and honoring those responsibilities that I have? And honestly, it wasn't until I went to my first Vipassana meditation that really landed with me. And when the voice of Goenka came over and talked about how one of the purposes for Vipassana, that 10-day meditation, is to live a monastic life. Not everybody can be a monk or a nun. Not everybody can isolate themselves in caves and pray for the world. If you can, that's beautiful. Good on you. But a lot of us have to be householders in some kind of way to progress society in the economic way that we're moving. And so with that heart, with the mindfulness ahead of us. And so, finding that time, that 10 days of silent meditation, living like a monk, meditating for 11 hours a day, and then coming back into the world, there was a whole new appreciation for not only the silence and the meditation that I find, but also for the interactiveness and the extrovertedness that I usually shy away from. We need community. We need to be felt loved. We need to show love. We need to be part of something to fix something. It's
Mm.
it's 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 one thing to, yeah, like to just isolate yourself, but we're triggered by humanity. And so it's like that whole bodhisattva kind of idea. We've understand that there's an enlightenment kind of aspect to life. There's a nirvana-esque type thing that we could reach, and we understand that, but we're choosing to come back and be a part of this world and the treacherousness and the trials and tribulations of this life, because that's where we really do our work, and that's how we can really, really, truly show up with the work that we're doing and show others that the work can be done. But we got to be here. We got to be part of this world.
Absolutely. So well said. Yeah, yeah. And everybody should do Vipassana if you have an opportunity to look into that.
Oof.
It's donation based, right?
Mm.
And it's an incredible experience. Yeah, and I mean, I think that, just circling back to this suicide prevention and mental health, I think that COVID and the state of the world is really putting on a microscope on people's well-being, and especially mental health. And like you said at the beginning, I loved what you said, normalizing these conversations, and I think a lot about my brother, and I got that intuition the night before to call him, and I didn't call. Not that I'm responsible at all, don't hold that, but just to be an ear, just to be there for somebody, and to be able to not try to coach them, to not try to do the yoga teacher thing on them, but simply just to receive them is enough. Just to receive somebody in the quiet, and to let them just go and go and go, and hold them in the physical if you're there, or just receive them, and yeah, I hear you, I'm here.
Mm.
And be able to really hear somebody and witness somebody. I think that there's a healing piece right there that we don't even have to. And I've really learned that with my 10-year-old. She has big emotions, and when she throws huge tantrums, and I learned that very early on, was just to receive. I see that you're really angry, like mirroring her, so she could understand what was happening, and just holding her. And I still to this day do that.
Mm.
And she's able to process very quickly. Like it doesn't linger. And I think if we can do more of that for each other, and make time for each other for that in and of itself is very, very healing. Because as soon as you're witnessed by another human,
Mm.
there's a space that opens. There's a feeling seen, feeling accepted, and then the nervous system relaxes because it feels contained, it
Mm,
feels held, right? So, yeah, I think some of that, and then, I just also wanted to speak about breath and importance of breathing consciously. Even if you spend 5 minutes in the morning learning how to meditate, I believe is essential to be a sound, healthy human in this day and age.
definitely. And I think that you said it perfectly, 5 minutes. Like a lot of times when I talk to people about meditation and getting into it, they're like, well, I really want to, but I don't have an hour to set a time aside a
Yeah,
day. Well, you don't need an
yeah.
hour. You take a minute, take 30 seconds, right? Just take some time to be peaceful with yourself and listen to your own body, listen to your breath, listen to what's going on with you. I think, there's I think what is in early 2000s, the mindfulness movement became very popularized, corporatized, if you will. And you started seeing all these corporate training programs moving into, all these different types of businesses. And on the outside, it looked great. Like, great, yes, we need more consciousness in our business place. Maybe that can help with the empathy and understanding better business. But what I saw was the actual opposite effect, because a lot of people entered into meditation that didn't willingly want to do it, but they were kind of moved into that because of either it was a corporate training program, or, there's that underlying kind of like, idea that if you sit for, let's say, 5 minutes a day, you're going to end up with some kind of a superpower, right? You'll quiet your mind enough that you can activate things, you can feel your energy. So, like, why not? Yeah, sit for 5 minutes a day. But what they don't tell you is that while you're sitting for that 5 minutes, there's this mirror that starts to form right in front of your eyes that shows you all the things that you need to work on with yourself. And a lot of people aren't ready to see that mirror. And I know a lot of people that got scared to death of that mirror, ran away. And kind of like what we were talking about earlier, if we're unconsciously doing negative things to ourselves, it lands differently. But once we see how negative that consciousness is and we're still actively doing it, that threw a lot of people that I know into a big, big spin, because they now understand that they're not living their life, quote unquote, right, but they don't know how to fix it because now they're afraid of what they see in the mirror. So they've just stepped away from meditation and are just in this kind of limbo-ish kind of area. So, in a way, in an opinion, I should say, this mindfulness movement kind of did a little bit more damage in the beginning. Hopefully it put people on the right path, but I don't think the mass population was ready to step forth into their shadow yet.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. I
Yeah.
hadn't ever thought of that. Yeah, it's a bit by bit path, right? It's really something that you grow into,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then there's different stages, and it's important once you get into yoga that you start to understand the different stages, and that you might get stuck at a stage for a long time. I know I
Uh-huh.
was, and then it usually takes a big dose of suffering to move you and propel you into the next stage, right? Right? I mean, that's human nature. And every great master that I've sat with, talks about that. It's like we're so human. Like, suffering is going to move you forward. If that is your foundational intention, is to evolve and be a heart-centered being,
Hmm.
everything in your life will become a teacher. Everything.
Every single thing. Our teachers manifest themselves in the strangest of ways. My biggest teacher right now is an 18-year-old child and a 13-year-old child. And they are giving
Wow.
me a run for my money. I thought I knew some
Oh
shit, and here we go.
man. Oh man, I can't even imagine. I won 10-year-old and I'm just okay,
uh,
day by day. She's already running my household.
right?
Just like,
Well, you mentioned something in the last comment you mentioned about just being felt and heard and listened and witnessed, and I think that's one of the things that I think pushes people away from holding space for talks like suicide, suicide ideation, romanticisms about it. Is that a lot of times, like, especially as a man raised in the West. Whether it was consciously taught to me or subconsciously taught to me, I have adapted the moniker of being a fixer. So if you bring me a problem, if you bring me an issue, I'm going to immediately try to find a solution for it. And that could just be my upbringing. That can be like the whole Western mentality for men, because that's kind of what we've adapted to. And I know that we're moving away from that, but that's still kind of where I'm at. And so, with when people brought me these situations in the past, I would try to fix them. Okay, well, what are you doing? Do you have somebody that can help? And, all red flags go up and the whistles get blown. And that can kind of scare the person that's wanting to be vulnerable to share their ideations with another human. And so, I think the active listening part, which you're talking about, witnessing, being like just feeling their space, holding that space for them while they can talk, and not try to give them solutions, not try to give them, any kind of unsolicited feedback, but just that active listening of just witnessing the person and letting them just get off their chest, get off their head, whatever they need. I think there's so much therapeutic benefit in that, and not trying to be the person that says, okay, I'm going to fix you. How do we do this? Right? Let's be honest with each other so we can fix it. Just being that witness, just letting somebody speak. I think that's where a lot of this vulnerability can start, and create comfort between the two parties or the multiple parties involved, instead of, the supposed pressure of being the fixer of the person that's quote unquote broken.
Totally. And I think I really learned that through my brother, the experience with my brother, because he was dealing with severe alcoholism, like blackout drinking and all sorts of things. And I was always in the fixing mode, because I became a teacher immediately at 33 when I took the training. Within 3 months, I was already teaching Kundalini yoga. And I knew that I knew then, or I made up a story about, like, in order to stay sober and to feel like I have a grasp on my mental health, I have to teach. And so I became a full-time teacher. I mean, I worked into it over the next couple of years. I still had part-time jobs, but by 35, I was like, running my yoga business and teaching retreats and doing that full time. And I was always trying to fix my brother with yoga, with coaching, with diet. And I could listen to him and what he was going on with, and his sorrow and his grief. But I think I know this about, I know that I used spirituality as a bypass for years and years and years, because I had no way of dealing with the terror that I experienced as a child, losing my primary caretaker, and also the abuse that followed that. That there was so much terror for me there, that I think I know that Kundalini yoga, meditation, fasting, sweat lodge, everything I did was just like be able to survive. Yeah. But I also feel it was a natural evolution into the next stage of awareness and consciousness. So circling back around to what you were saying about the gift of being able to be a receptive listener for somebody and holding a space of shunya, a zero-pointed space, that's a miracle, because not a lot of people are able to do that. And really, when I think about my own suffering and my grief, still to this day, I'm looking for that one person that can just hold me while I can explode. Yeah. Still to this day, I'm looking about like where can I go that somebody can just absolutely receive the enormosity, the enormousness of all these feelings that I've carried and still carry to this day. So it's really a skill to be developed over time, and as we come into our wiser years, I believe. And so there's that piece, and then I remember my teacher saying, like, never teach somebody who doesn't come to you and ask to be taught. Don't give advice to anybody unless they're asking for advice. So I mean, can you imagine the magic of just being able to hold a loving, compassionate space for somebody who just needs to purge? Because I know once I purge, I feel so much better, and I've worked into holding myself. Like I know how to hold, I know had to take myself through a process where I've been studying this other modality called possibility management, which I've been really enjoying. And one of the things is like 3 minutes of anger 3 times a week for 3 months. And so I set my timer and I go in a safe space and I just go and I just experience the maximum level of rage and anger that I can experience in 3 minutes. And I let myself have it. And I tell you, when I do that, those days, I'm so fucking alive. Like I am just so like present and juicy and activated because I'm letting all of my emotions and feelings. And that's what I love about possibility management is that they really have such an amazing way of dealing with your feelings and learning how to be with them. And so it's really, and I'm just discovering this modality. It was introduced to me by a dear brother of mine, and I've just started digging in. They actually have a program coming up in Seattle, which I was looking at going to do because it's a 3-day thing. It's very interesting, yeah, how, you just go down the rabbit hole with different things. And I've been really intrigued by that work and have taken little bits of it that my friend has introduced me to. But the feeling and the emotion, let's speak on that a little bit, because it's so important that we understand that a feeling is a feeling, and that's all it is. It's not who we are in our essence. And when we can start to dive into it and not be afraid of it, learn how to ride it, and then let's see where I'm at on the other side of it. I mean, that's some magic right there.
It really is, and that's the emotions balance that you're talking about. There's one of my favorite quotes, I think it's from Bell Hooks, is all emotions are okay, all behaviors are not. Mm-hmm. So when we take the moment to experience our full breadth of our emotions, the elation, the sadness, the anger, then we honor those emotions and they don't sneak in and become this negative, nasty behavior that pops up when we're angry and, start stomping our feet like that little 4-year-old that didn't get the toy that it wanted. So when we can find that freedom to experience the full enormousness of our emotions, without feeling negative or without feeling regret or this remorse about it. Possibility management, this is the first time I've heard of that, and I can honestly say that anger is one of the hardest things for me to understand as a human. And part of it, I think, is because a lot of what I experienced as a male is toxic masculinity. And when toxic masculinity is out there, it's very aggressive. It's very, just enormous. And it's not something I resonate with. And so I end up reserving a lot of my anger and not finding healthy ways to exert it. Well, in the past, I haven't. I've gotten a little bit better about it now with different practices like yoga, meditation, but possibility management, just carving out time to just feel my anger and let it get out and let it just be what it needs to be. That is very, very intriguing to me.
It is, yeah. It was equally intriguing to me. Just this new relationship, because I teach a lot about the cyclical lunar nature of the emotions within a woman, because a lot of women have this, I'm crazy, something's wrong with me. But no, actually what's happening is a woman shifts, she has 11 internal moon centers in her body based on when she was conceived. It carries a certain grid, and each moon center has a completely different emotional reality. So in a 28-day cycle, she is moving emotionally into a different reality every 2.5 days. She's a different woman.
Wow.
And so when women understand, and this is one of the primary things that we teach at Shakti School, when a woman understands, how she fluctuates emotionally every 2.5 days, life has a completely different meaning. I mean, that teaching alone was what saved me when I was 33. When I discovered that teaching, I was like, this is everything, because I can tell exactly when my pinks of the cheek, which is the most chaotic, crazy 2.5 days of the month, when a woman is unbalanced. And if she doesn't know
Okay.
it, somebody like me who comes from, you know, let's say genetic mental health issues, which I'm not even putting that on myself, but there is a thread of that in me, a belief that I'm still working with. Um, when
Hmm.
I discovered that, I was like, this is the biggest revelation. And now I have a map that I can work with. And I know how I travel every 2.5 days, and I know where I am, and I can do what I know I need to do to self-care. I know that when I am in the
Yes.
pinks of the cheek, it's not a good time to have deep conversations with my husband or my daughter. It's a time to have girlfriends around and feel supported and have a good cry or have a good freak out, you know? Like I know how to self-care because I understand my emotional reality. But I think that there's so much taboo, like you said in the beginning again, so well, there's so much taboo around suicide thoughts, romanticization, or mental health issue. There's so much taboo because we're all just trying to keep this front, this mask,
Hmm.
this patriarchal, square that we're supposed to live in, which is just not relevant anymore. It's just not relevant anymore. This is the Aquarian age. This is the time of consciousness and love and healing, where all things will be revealed in the truth, in the light of truth. And that's why all the structures are falling apart, because the age of truth
Hmm.
is here. And we're at the very beginning of it. And that's why it feels like, excruciatingly painful, no matter who you are, because we are having to dismantle everything that we've known and step into a brand new paradigm.
Hmm. And everybody, as much as we desire change, we all know that change is one of the hardest things we can ever do. It's uncomfortable. It's aggravating because we're not in our social norms anymore. We're not in our pattern making. And so change is treacherous for a lot of us, but it's necessary. It's needed. We need to change to move forward. I love what you just said about just finding balance right now. There's an indigenous prophecy that was shared with me by, I was listening to Dr. Zach Bush. He's a
Great.
fantastic, amazing human being. And he was talking about this indigenous prophecy that I think it was in 2020. It's the first year. So for however long, since the dawn of time, there's been a bird flying around with just its masculine wing unfurled and no feminine wing. So you can only imagine how well a one-winged bird can fly. It's spiraling down, it's going crazy. There's no directionality to it. It's chaotic. 2020 is the first year that feminine wing unfurled, and it's the first year that this bird can fly with both of its wings completely open, and the balance of that. And we're embracing in this moment right now of being in that time to where we can have a balanced masculine, a balanced feminine, and not have to compete with this patriarchy that's been put in front of
That's
us. We're now aware that it's how toxic it is and how unbalanced it is. And, we, however many we that is, are collectively working towards this understanding and sharing this information. And, along with that too, one of my biggest kind of advocacies right now is sharing information with our younger
yes.
generation. The stuff that we have to find, we have to look at ancient texts to figure out how to breathe right. We have to look at all these things to figure out how to meditate. Why can't we just be taught this when we're young? Why are we being taught who signed the Declaration of Independence when we can't even control our own breath and get ourselves out of a
Sure.
panic attack? Like, we know these things now. We have these somatic responses to trigger our parasympathetic nervous system. The 2.5 day cycle you just talked about, that's the first time I've heard of that. That should be common knowledge to every
Yeah.
single woman that is out there, because when we have an understanding about the way that we're just built, and that's just the way it is, then we can take a lot of the stories that we create about ourselves, about how crazy we are or how unbalanced we are, all these things, and we can just enjoy the personal constitution of the human existence and experience that we're in. One of the things that really helped me out is understanding that um, that I am naturally occurrent to depressive kind of cycles, right? And that was put to me in my human
Yeah.
design chart when I finally got my human design chart read, it kind of gave me just like a breath of fresh air
Mm.
of like, okay, so this is just my natural cycle of my existence. I'm gonna have really high highs when I'm very productive, but I'm gonna have kind of some low lows. And when I feel those lows coming in, because it's very cyclical, now I can prepare my body for it. I can prepare my mentality. I can take days off. I can just cocoon myself into wherever I need to, listen to some podcasts, watch a movie, make some bracelets, do things that are experiencing that creative side that takes me out of my anxiety and lets me be a human being that just has ups and downs sometimes,
Beautiful,
you know?
beautiful.
Yeah. I really hope that this information, that what you just shared is like, I'm actually excited to tell my fiance that, and just share that information with her because, we're very open about, our
Yeah.
experiences in life. And that for me is like, that should be like page one of the how to be an adult manual. Okay. We're going to go through cycles of life.
Totally. And I that's why I so dig this woman's work. And I love working with men and women, but I feel a very, very strong call and have done for the last decade to work with women. And we have at Shakti School, we have a very affordable, simple, like 15 video course coming out on the moon centers to really educate
Oh,
women. And I just taught the moon centers to about 30 teenage girls here in Costa Rica. That was like my first through Ohana Girls, which is a teenage girls program online, which is fantastic. But I did it in person because it's filmed here. And there's so much amazing information. But what you said, Adam, is right on point. These are the new manuals that we should be educating the coming generations with. I really dig that. I really dig that. And one of the commitments of Shakti School, and we've already started that, but it's a slow unfolding, is to educate young girls. Yeah, and my daughter and her friends, and I bring them here and we do little dance camps because they love to dance and they love to sing. And then I drop in all the knowledge. Okay, today we're gonna study classical Indian dance and what it is to give gratitude to the earth and gratitude to the heavens. We're gonna, and I just teach them like 5 moves, and then they've got this like little move down they like to do, and then I just drop little things here and there, and we do like opening circles, like, okay, so how you feeling today? What's going on? Like, what's been the highlights of this week, or what's been the worst moments this week? That's usually my question. And with my daughter every day, what was the highlight today? What was the low lights? What was like the hard moment? And we talk about it. I think that communication with our young ones and like making sure that they feel secure and heard and safe and not judged, you know,
yes.
is some of the key um, feedback that we can provide for them, right, to step into.
But yeah, creating those safe containers, one of the things that my daughter and I experienced recently, was she had an encounter with a snake. And up in Washington, we don't have poisonous snakes; it's just a little garter snake. And this little snake, crawled across her foot when we were hiking one day, and she freaked out. She went into panic mode, and so I'm like, okay. So explain to me what happened. She did. Okay. So now we're safe. We're away from the snake. We're in a safe place. Okay. So now what I would like you to do is shake your body. Right, just shake it out. Right, we have nervous energy inside of us. We have this anxious energy. Shake it out. And she looked at me, and I'm like, okay, you've seen nature videos, right? So you've seen a zebra getting chased by a lion, and that zebra finally gets away, and the lion trots back off to its pack. And that zebra, when it feels safe, it'll do this little like 5 minute or 5 second little shake, right? And it'll just like shake, 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 and then it trots right back off, and it's a zebra again. But so that shaking is that anxious energy. It's got to get out. It's built up all this testosterone, this energy, this like fight or flight of like, holy shit, I'm about to die. I got to get out of here. And so when we have that moment of safety again and we feel safe, we shake that energy out. And she looked at me like I was an idiot. And I'm like, well, I kind of am an idiot. I'm your father. That's what I'm supposed to be. But I promise you this works. And but it's almost like we have to lay that groundwork for because some of the spiritual work that we do can seem what we would consider silly. You know, closing your eyes, talking to the ethos, sitting and singing your mantras of "I am light," I am a pure human being," talking very positively about ourselves. Like I grew
Mhm.
up in the '90s when a lot of that stuff was mocked. Like
Yeah,
we
of
didn't
course,
understand
of
that,
course.
talking positively of yourself was like,
Yeah,
that's actually really cool. You're the only person that's going to really do that on a regular basis. So do it
yeah,
up. And so, creating that container with her and laying that groundwork, even though it didn't land, I guess the proper way in the beginning, that was a couple years ago. And now, a couple years past, now we have these practices and we have these understandings to where she feels a little more comfortable to do these things that might seem silly, but are very, very therapeutic to our human existence if we just lean into them.
totally. I mean, my daughter's still like, Mom, can you stop your inspirational stuff, please? Like anywhere we go, that please don't bring anything inspirational, no inspirational talk. Like, just let me be a kid. I'm like, yeah, I got you, but I still find ways, It gets in there. It gets in there. You don't even really have to speak much. Like she knows at 10 years old, she knows how to cook herself 3 meals a day. She knows what food is good for her, what food, forget the good and the bad, what food is nutrient dense and what food is less nutrient dense and what food is comfort food. And she knows how to she's learning how to regulate herself, and she's, she really can like take care of herself. It's crazy, like to watch that emotionally as well. Like she knows when she's had enough of being around people. I want to go home now. I'm done. Like I need quiet,
Oh, wow.
and then when she feels a little anxious, she's like, can you put that mantra on, and she knows. So it's in the field. So you don't, somebody like you and parents out there that are on the path, that are in a practice, like they're getting it through our being. We don't even have to say
Mm,
much. Actually, the less we say, I believe, even with her father, like her father is a whole other level of, I think evolution, and he's 10 years older than me. And he's been in a practice for 40 years. Like he doesn't, he doesn't even need to say anything. And then when she gets around him, because he's been taking care of his mom in the States. And so we've been a little bit apart this year, but her nervous system, like, is just so grounded. Like she's so, because she's in that energy field. And so we really don't have to make a whole big deal of it, and I make too much of a deal of it. And I know I do. And that's my growing edge. I'm like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do this. Let's meditate. And, and I can get a little frantic with it. I know I can. But at the end of the day, like they are not us. And they are
yes.
wired,
Right.
through their pituitary and pineal gland. I read this whole thing that the children that are coming in from like, 2000 onwards are wired intuitively in a completely different way. Like their capacity to live a life of intuition is, 100 times what we have access to.
I
Yeah.
agree 100%. I've gotten so much hope and joy and just elation from talking to kids, and I don't mean kids like, well, even small kids, but like you said, 2004, these 20-year-olds and younger. There's so much beautiful intuitive
Mhm.
nature that they're gifted with, and for a lot of the people that I talk to, they don't even realize they have that kind of a gift or that kind of an empathy or that kind of openness. But I think it's
Mhm.
it's it's these different parenting styles that we're embracing now that embraces intuition instead of shuts it down. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was very still religious based, and religion was at that time still fire and brimstone if you did something wrong, right? So if you did something wrong, you touch yourself, you do something illegal, all this shit, you're going to go to hell and you're going to burn for the rest of your life. So there was still that very intense fear factor that was put into us as children. Whereas now, so many parents that I know and so many moms and dads that have these beautiful children are embracing the imaginary friend. They're embracing the stories of all these eccentricnesses that, back in the day we were taught to like, stop with the stories, go play with your toys. Like, no, there's no imaginary friends. But the more we embrace that stuff, the more the magic stays alive with us. And I think that aliveness and that magicalness leads to the intuitiveness that we all are born and bred with. And we have this beautiful gift of our intuition. But over times, it gets dampened by that constant negativity of like, no, that's not real. No, that's not real. No, go do something tangible. No, go to school. Go learn something. Well, now we have this wave of parents and wave of adults that are embracing these new different types of mentalities and encouraging kids to sit with with their mentality, with their thoughts, with their emotions, and not just be the good kid. We don't want that outburst, listen to your mom, listen to your dad. No, you know what? If you got to scream and yell, we're not going to do it in Red Robin. Let's go out into the parking lot. We can do it there. But if you got shit to get out of your system, let's get that shit out of your system because I don't want to see it come out later. So I'd love to talk about the music that you and your husband create. And so you have this beautiful group that you and your husband have that has this beautiful spiritual music that I mean, just like I said earlier, fits perfectly with everything that I do in my personal life. But you also have a beautiful background as a solo artist in your earlier career, spanning from hip hop, R&B. You're big in the British scene, so how was the transition from your earlier music to what you're making with your husband, and how that's impacted your journey?
It's just a natural evolution, I never tried to be a specific kind of artist or fit in a specific kind of genre. I really just followed my artist inspiration. I mean, back in the day when I was 13, I moved to London from Brussels when I was 11. And I got introduced. I spent a lot of time kind of out with my friends because my parents weren't around before I went to boarding school. And I got introduced to breakdance and freestyle circles. And that's what I got into. And so that was like my natural expression at that time. And I was also a dancer. So that was really like what resonated for me, my bones, like dance and hip hop, conscious hip hop and freestyling and breaking. I mean, that's what I loved. And so then the natural evolution was, signing a record deal when I was 18. And I had this unique kind of French English hip hop style that I did, which is kind of a poetic kind of flow. When you think of hip hop, it's hard to, in this modern world, we're talking about the 90s now, I'm a little bit older. So, right. And then it just naturally progressed into mantra when I discovered Kundalini yoga when I was 33. And then, I was on not on the red road, but my husband has been a long time, follower of the Red Road and Sweat Lodge and working with this one tribe out of California, and learned so many native songs and did all that. I've learned, spiritual songs from around the world that I love and we love. And so we just do whatever feels good to us and whatever we're inspired to do. We're not really trying to fit into any specific genres. We've made, about 8 mantra albums. And now we're releasing just an album of conscious music. And the first single is Tear Me Up, which was, it came to me as one swoosh, sitting at the piano. And it was my brother's last conversation with God.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Which says, tear me up, break me down. I want to know how beautiful I am. Like, tear away my masks. Tear away my egos. Let me feel my essence, right? Tear me up, break me down. I want to feel your power in my hands.
Wow.
And it just came so strong like that, the whole verse, everything. And the lyrics are really important to the song. And so, I'm very moved and inspired. And the song previous to that, on the Walking Sky, Dreaming Earth, that he gifted me, he was so present with me, that whole album, was Ancestors.
Oh, that's a beautiful song.
Yeah, I love that song so much. And we made a beautiful video to it with some friends. And it's just, these songs for me they're nothing that I craft and I think about, well, is this going to be a hit? Is this going to be good? It's really just what it's the cosmos downloading to me. And I've always been a downloader when it comes to music. And so I'm grateful for the tenacity to be 30 years in and going strong. And even though, it's not been like a huge success, we're visualizing it being, really spreading to people, and conscious music, taking a lead, more of a lead, because music is such a huge influence on the younger generations, and it has such a loud voice. And then you're seeing at the Grammys, like these satanic rituals that they're doing at the Grammys, seriously. And you're just like, wow, seriously? Okay, it's like that, and then us that are rooting for conscious music, we're kind of in the background, but I think we're going to get louder and louder as the years progress. And that's really our commitment, is to educate through frequency, because frequency is so much more powerful than words.
It really is, and music spans languages, it spans cultures. Music is one of the bridges. It's the chakras, of the things that everybody can relate back to. We've been using music as a healing modality since, when we were cave people, right? We've
That's
been
right.
like hitting on rocks and drums and using our voices to tell stories for eons and eons and eons. So we all have something that's really tied up into music with us. And one of the things I love the most about your music is that you're making, in my opinion, you're making modern day mantras. And I think that is like one of the most beautiful gifts that humanity has been gifted, is the gift of a mantra, and the understanding of like how these mantras can really speak to our souls. And so to continue that lineage and moving forward into the modern day times, I mean, I mentioned earlier, but one of my favorite songs off your Walking Sky Dreaming Earth album is Wahe Guru, Devotion. And it's because you've melded this beautiful Wahe Guru mantra with blues. And like those are two things. Like I grew up on the blues. I grew up on rock music, so that's
Yeah.
like a big special place in my heart. I play guitar, play the blues. And
Yeah.
now my new passion is mantras. And so you've just like unknowingly pushed these two amazing genres of music together that is perfect for me. And that's that modern day mantra for me. You're creating that, you're modernizing something that's been with us for centuries and centuries and centuries, and continuing that moving forward, so that more people can be inspired by mantras. They can learn about them, understand what Wahe Guru means, and understand what devotion is, and then let that inspire them to continue that lineage to push forward. Like that's
Mm,
just, it's so beautiful to kind of be witness to the evolution of something so ancient.
mm. Thank you for that. That really touches my heart. Just letting spirit move is just the only way, especially when you're working with mantra, because these mantras have been in our lives with Akka and I for 20 years. We've been chanting these mantras, we birth to these mantras, we heal through these mantras. They've been like the tapestry, the soundtrack of our lives since we've been in this lineage together. And so for us to be able to feel the freedom to express them in our very unique way, is cool. And thank you for seeing and feeling that. That's really nice to receive.
Oh man, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
There's one more question I wanted to kind of tackle, if you feel up to it. And
sure.
I, out of all the people I've spoken to so far, I feel that this conversation allows me to ask you this question. And again, if you don't feel comfortable answering it, it's up to you. But so with suicide, there's a level of understanding in spiritual community about suicide, and what I've heard, and I just want to understand if this is something that resonates with you, is that in the dramatic chances that somebody does commit suicide for whatever reason in this earth plane, in this human existence. I do believe in reincarnation, and it's an idea. But when we reincarnate, we're faced again with those same issues that we left this world in, right? So if let's say I committed suicide because of depression, some mass depression that I've had. When I'm birthed back into this world, depression is still going to be something that I have to work with and I have to conquer, because I didn't do it in my first existence, or that previous existence. Does that something that you've heard, or something that resonates with you, as far as those coming back with that karma in a way?
Well, there's so many different ways to look at it. And I do believe in, I think the Buddhists talk very clearly about the wheel of life.
Hmm.
and how you cycle through all of these different roles and these different realms within your life. And then the yogis talk about karma and the karmic cycle and the karmic wheel. And there's actually an amazing book that Sadhguru just wrote called Karma, and it's really, really fantastic. Highly recommend that, because there's so much talk about what karma is, oh, it's my karma, it's this, it's that. Who really knows? But I think that, I don't really know, to tell you the truth. I do believe in reincarnation, and I do believe that whatever you haven't resolved in this life, you will need to resolve in the next life. But you may have a few lives up there where you're resolving things and then choosing to come back in.
Right.
I mean, I had a very, and I'll just share it because I'm an open book. But when when I was pregnant, the moment that I found out I was pregnant, which was on October 9th in 2011, which was Guru Ram Das's birthday. And Guru Ram Das in our lineage is like the healer of the heart, and I found out, like, I'd literally taken probably 15 tests that year, like so desperado to be pregnant, I was 39. I was just like, I just need to get pregnant, and finally that morning in the kitchen in Topanga Canyon with my husband, and I went to get a test, and it's his birthday, and we're supposed to be chanting at 4 a.m. for 2.5 hours, at Yoga West, and I can't go because I'm like in pieces because I'm not feeling well. Take a test. I'm down on my knees, like with this test in my hand, just screaming, like, like so happy. And in that moment, like this inexplainable knowing of, this is your mother coming back in to complete her cycle. Like it's a girl and it's your mother. And I mean, if I could tell you all the synchronicities of who Sahej is, and not only that, I had that download, and then I go to see my midwife, and my midwife is, your due date is June 8th, which is my grandfather's birthday, which is my mother's father's birthday.
Okay.
And I'm said to, but she's like, but don't worry, they never come on the due date. I said, no, she will come on the due date. I mean, and she came in right naturally, right? Home birth, like 4 minutes into the portal of June 8th, right?
Wow.
And then when I look at, my mother was an incredible pianist and an incredible musician, and she wanted to be a musician. She was such a lover of horses, had horses her whole life, rode horses, loved horses. Those are the exact things that my daughter's doing. My daughter lives for her, she's on a team. She lives for her horse riding, and she loves her piano. She loves dancing. She loves singing. Sure, she gets some of that from me, but for me, that to me is an expression of the mystery. And I still feel to this day, and I have no emotional attachment like, oh, this is my mother in my daughter's body. Like, no, but it could very be likely. But I also feel that Sahej, and when I look at her chart, she has a life full of ease. She has come for a life of creative expression and ease. That's who she is. And her name was given to us 3 weeks after she was born. We just waited and waited and waited, and it came. And Sahej is it's Sahej Pod. It's the oneness with creation. I am in the oneness with creation. So if what you're saying is right, it could be, and she has her challenges and she will have her challenges. But I just wanted to share that story, which is very dear to my heart. And I don't think that I've ever shared it publicly, but that's something that is a mystical experience that you can't even really explain. People will think you're half back crazy, right? If you talk to a regular person about that, but in these kind of circles, we can talk about that because we know this to be truth, right?
Exactly.
So I'm more of this, I am more leaning away from the stigma of if you choose to end this movie, because we've created such a tragedy out of suicide.
Right.
But you know, when Abraham Hicks, who I love and has been my teacher for 20 years as well, the vibrational teachers, when they talk about suicide, they're like, it's just a person ending the movie. They're just done. They need to like recalibrate and come back in with another set of frequency.
Okay. Wow.
That's one way of looking at it. You know, when I go again, it's the paradox. Like I can hold that in one moment, and then the next moment I can be in the most intense grief about my lineage. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just being able to hold both, and that's another way of looking at it. You know, if you Google or YouTube Abraham Hicks on suicide, it's really interesting what they have to say about that, the vibrational, on the frequency vibrational level. So yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because a lot of times maybe we're stuck in that story of the dramatics of somebody losing their life, somebody taking their own life because of the emotion that the people sticking around have attached to that person. I will definitely look into Abraham Hicks because I appreciate the dichotomies of things because, like the amount of sorrow and loss and, all those emotions that come with somebody taking their own lives, that can be viewed as very selfish because it's the emotions that I'm feeling about your loss, right? I'm feeling this because you're not here. I'm upset with you because, you've chosen to take in your life. Maybe that person like you were saying, maybe that person just needed that reset. This life was what it needed to be for them, and they're going to take it and they're going to go and reset and come back in a different way. And for the people that are still around, that's our work to understand and accept that. Death is one of the most natural things that's going to happen to every single one of us. We haven't found a way around it yet. So whether you die, quote unquote, naturally, or you've chosen to take your own life in some kind of way, we're not going to be here, right? Everybody's going to pass sooner or later. So maybe in a way it's giving us the like real time ability to process very, very strong emotions around something like this so that we can become better balanced in some kind of way, so understanding that, the fleetingness of how beautiful life is and how much we need to just appreciate what's in front of us, not expect there's going to be a tomorrow, but just like love the human being that's in front of you today, whether you know them or you don't.
That's right. Well said. And the time and space on earth is the only place where it exists. Past, present, future doesn't exist in the upper realms. It's only ever now, now, now. Everything is living simultaneously.
Right.
Everything is happening simultaneously. So, it's tough to really know the absolute answer. There isn't one. But I think that the answer that empowers you is the best. Like that story about my daughter may be completely in my own imagination, and I organized everything and orchestrated everything to be exactly like that so that I could have this sense of massive healing with my mother through my daughter. And I mean, it's in my chart. This whole, my whole chart is about healing the mother, and it's about being a representation of mother, a spiritual mother for other women. So it's so interesting how our life purpose is actually etched in our destiny. Our life purpose is etched in our chart, in our astrology. And that's what I feel for me. It's like, of course I chose this lineage. Of course I had to go through all that suffering in order to bring this to life. One doesn't exist without the other. And the level at which I believe in the healing of the feminine, I mean, it's like nobody can shake me from that. Nobody. No matter what I go through mentally and emotionally, or what I've seen with my lineage, nobody can shake that. I believe in peace. I do believe in love. I believe in healing. And it's what gets me up every single day, you know.
Hmm. It's conversations like this and the ideas like we're just sharing right now that lead me back to a Ram Dass talk I heard a long time ago, and he's talking about Emmanuel, his what he called his spook friend, the entity that kind of follows him around, and he said he was having a conversation with Emmanuel one day about just the trials and tribulations of humanity. He's like, Ram Dass is like, I'm done. This is stupid, and Emmanuel said, well, you're on this human plane, right? And this earth plane and this human existence. And Ram Dass is like, yeah. He's like, well, why don't you learn the curriculum, right? You're a human. You're in this human existence. Learn how to be a freaking human, right? Yes, there is divinity to it as well. But if you're only focused on the divinity and not the humanistic side of it, then you're abandoning part of your journey here. And the humanistic side is the volatility of the emotional spectrum that we have. Like, we can be so elated one day and so down another, even moment to moment, But taking the ability to feel those emotions and experience those emotions and be one with them, like we said earlier, emotions are okay, behaviors are not. When we can experience our emotions and understand that sometimes we're going to be pissed off, sometimes we're going to be happy as hell, and just embracing the dichotomy between the two, then we're not bastardizing any of them. And so then that what we would consider toxic emotions don't just pop up in these random places. We're able to process our annoyances right when they happen. Right. So
That's
just
right.
like be here, be open, be like, have my emotions right here, ready to be heard, ready to be seen.
That's right.
I think
That's right.
one of the best quotes I heard. I think it was Nicole LaPera. She's a psychologist. Wrote a book called How to Do the Work, and I believe it was her. But she was saying that the most emotionally balanced human beings are toddlers, because you know exactly how they feel every time they feel it. If they're happy, you
Yeah.
know it. If they're
I
pissed, you're gonna know it.
love
If they're
it.
tired, you know they need a nap, right?
That's
And that's
fantastic.
and I just appreciate that, because like, one,
Love
I love
that.
kids. Kids are great and they make me happy, but just seeing that emotional sway between toddlers, like, I'm so happy I have my toy. Now I don't have my toy and now I'm pissed. Like, cool. Why can't adults be like that? Like, you've just taken my pen. I need my pen back. Like, give me that back, right? Instead of just like embracing like your awkwardness and be like, I'll just go get another one. That's fine. And I'll just be upset about this later. And it's going to come out when I yell at my dog later when I get home. It's like, we could just have this conversation now,
That's right.
dispel any kind of emotions, and just, continue on with our days.
That's maturity. I think that's adulthood, and few of us really get to adulthood.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I'm working on right now. It's like, okay, I'm going to really step into adulthood in all areas of my life, right? Finances, health, relationship. Let me be an adult. Let me get into some maturity here.
I know for so long I've been playing the imposter. Like, one of these days, somebody's going to realize there's a 4-year-old driving this man meat suit. I don't know when,
Yeah,
but they're going to figure me out.
that's funny. Yeah, we all
Oh,
got that going on for sure. Yeah.
yeah. Well, when is your new single comes out on the 16th? When is the full album coming out?
What we're doing is we're doing one single every month. So we have about 8 songs, and we're just releasing one single at a time. So the next one will be in mid-October, right for Thanksgiving, which is actually really the theme of Thanksgiving. Yeah,
That's beautiful. Very
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Well, Pauline, I am deeply grateful for your time in this conversation. I
Thank you.
loved all the directions we went into. This is,
Mm.
I love having open, vulnerable talks, and I appreciate your openness and your vulnerability as well.
Thank you. I do. I enjoyed it immensely, and it was really beautiful to hear, like an evolved masculine take on things because it's raw and it's real and it takes a lot, I think, also for the masculine to be able to put itself out there in such with such vulnerability. So I equally appreciate the way you showed up into this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. It really does. It's a lot of the work I've been doing personally is to try to
Yeah,
balance my masculinity with my femininity. So I appreciate that.
beautiful.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Pauline. I look forward to having you back again. I'm so excited for you and your husband and the way that the directionality of your group. I can't wait to hear the new single and the new singles that are coming out. And
Thank
if
you.
there's ever anything that we can do for you, if you'd ever like to have an opportunity to come back, a topic you want to talk about, please, open platform. You're always welcome.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll come back with Arca next time and we can have maybe a dialogue around like conscious relationships and
Oh,
stuff. Like
I would love
we
that.
love that. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Pauline. Enjoy the rest of your
You're
day.
welcome, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending time with Pauline and I. Please check out the show notes and ways to get in touch with Pauline or to listen to Aykanna's music. Also, please subscribe and like the show and send it to those who you feel can be helped by it. As always, if you have any suicidal thoughts or need help, 988 is a great number and a great resource you can reach out to. But opening up yourself to talk to your friends, talk to your family, finding the help that you need, it's there for you. Obeisance and love. We'll see you next time.